Hello everyone, thanks for swinging by to find out what else I saw in July that I haven't already told you about. Movie number 1 is 1952's Stars and Stripes Forever. Clifton Webb plays John Philip Sousa, composer of our most beloved military marches, including one of the most iconic pieces of American music, the Stars and Stripes Forever. My mom loves Sousa marches and marching bands. She loves this movie. It was a popular tape in our collection when my siblings were growing up. I kind of missed out coming along on the tail end of things. I only saw it a couple times. But America's 250th birthday seemed a good opportunity to revisit it. I guess I've watched Laura too much, because now I can no longer see Clifton Webb without thinking of Waldo Lydecker. Even though I saw him in this, and Titanic, and Cheaper by the Dozen before I saw Laura, but he's very good here, and the beard and glasses help with the transformation. Sousa is characterized as a proper man outwardly, but he has an open mind and a sneaky sense of humor. I enjoyed the playful moments with his wife, performed by Ruth Hussey. The film co-stars Robert Wagner and Deborah Paget. Wagner plays a young Marine who's made modifications to his tuba to create an instrument he calls the sousaphone. My grandfather played the sousaphone in marching band back in the 30s, and now my second cousin, which would be his great-grandson, has learned the sousaphone and played it in his marching band this year, which is really cool. Deborah Paget is vivacious as an aspiring singer and dancer who hopes Sousa will have a place for her with his band as it begins its grand tour. She's featured in several musical numbers, quite a bit more than I anticipated, and as a biopic, I've gotta say, there's not much to it. It doesn't cover Sousa's origins or his youth. It covers a relatively short span of his life, just jumps into the 1890s when he's already successfully leading the Marine Corps band. And the movie also lacks substantial conflict, and spends as much time, maybe even more time, focusing on Paget and Wagner's feisty romance as it does on Sousa. But these other fun elements never take the spotlight from Sousa's brisk, rousing marches. If the film is correct, he did compose other music and sought to be recognized for more than his marches, but it is just that his marches are what we remember most, because, well, they were the best. Movie number 2 is one I've covered several times, although it has been a few years, 1972's 1776, the musical about the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia, as John Adams, played by William Daniels, pushes for the delegates from the 13 colonies to adopt a resolution for independency from Great Britain. Every 4th of July, I like to watch at least some of this movie. If I'm only going to catch some of it, I prefer it to be the last hour, which is the real meaty part. But I took the last couple years off because I didn't want it to become stale. However, with this being the 250th anniversary of the writing and signing of the Declaration of Independence, which this movie is all about, I had to see the whole thing this year. Every time I talk about this movie, especially in person, I feel compelled to make excuses. I hem and haw, I say it's an acquired taste, it's dated, it's kind of weird sometimes, it's pretty dorky, a couple of the songs are corny, and so on. You know what? I'm sick of it. It's a good movie, and I shouldn't have to feel embarrassed for liking it. The worst thing about it is that they put the worst scene close to the beginning. And if you can't make it past the Richard Henry Lee sequence, I don't blame you. I hate that part too. I don't know why they chose to make him look and sound like such an idiot. But if you can make it beyond that, there's a lot of really good stuff here, and I think it's a shame that some people won't give it the time of day just because of some singing. There aren't that many songs, and they tend to be lumped together. A section of discussion, a section of 3 to 5 songs, a section of debate, a section of songs, more heated debate. The songs become like emotional vents or punctuation marks, And they really don't get in the way of the debate, which is good. I do enjoy most of the songs, but it's the dialogue I relish. I love the wit, the intellectual clashing of viewpoints, the navigation of compromise. Some of the lines are taken from actual documents, and each time I watch this movie, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, I become more familiar with the other delegates. The first time you focus on Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson, who are the main characters. But then you become more aware of the main opposition, Rutledge, Dickinson. You start to realize how awesome Caesar Rodney was. Last time I realized how much I enjoyed John Hancock. And now that I'm so familiar with the movie, I'm free to focus more on smaller characters, like Sherman, Witherspoon, Chase, Hall, Wilson. The film always makes me think. I love all that juicy debate and bickering. There are parts and lines that always make me laugh, and there are a couple spots that are moving. Like Secretary Thompson's reading of the last dispatch from General Washington as he prepares the troops for a battle in which they're hopelessly outnumbered. The way Thompson's voice trembles and he pauses to compose himself always gets me. Yes, there is stuff in the movie that's dated, that's odd, that I wouldn't have done that way. It's not for everyone, but it holds a special place in my heart, and for a quintessential movie to celebrate the colonies declaring their independence from the British, it's hard to beat. Movie number 3 is 2004's Miracle, which tells the true story of the Miracle on Ice, the American hockey team's victory against the undefeated Soviets at the 1980 Olympic Games. Kurt Russell is excellent as Herb Brooks, the intense, demanding coach who pushes his athletes to their limits. Patricia Clarkson plays his wife, and Noah Emmerich plays the assistant coach. This isn't an Independence Day movie, but it is considered a patriotic film, and it certainly got more American flags and exuberant chants of USA than your average movie. Besides, we like a good underdog story, and this was a big one, not just because the upset seemed to come out of nowhere, but because the defeat of the Communists was viewed as a symbolic win for the nation. Now, I never watch hockey, I'm not a fan of any sport, and I don't have a single athletic bone in my body. But as a spectator, I can get into a good game, and I've enjoyed all kinds of sports films about football, baseball, soccer, even golf. I think a good sports movie is entertaining even if you don't care for the sport itself or you know diddly squat about the rules. This movie does a good job making you care, and the hockey isn't hard to follow at all. I was able to learn a few things, like that they're allowed to swap players out during gameplay. That surprised me, and I didn't know beforehand how indispensable goalie Jim Craig was. The entire section reenacting the final game against the Soviets is brilliantly executed, thanks in large part to some great editing and music. Everything culminates in an exhilarating final act, and knowing who wins doesn't take away from the film. Movie number 4 is 1982's Who Am I This Time? Susan Sarandon and Christopher Walken star in this charming hour-long adaptation of a Kurt Vonnegut story. Walken plays Harry, a shy hardware store clerk who gives one electric performance after another for the community theater group. And when Sarandon's awkward newcomer is cast as Stella to his Stanley in A Streetcar Named Desire, she's taken with him. But offstage, they can't get anywhere. It's a cute little romance about two socially inept people struggling to express themselves. I really enjoyed the story, the performances, the humor. Apparently, doing A Streetcar Named Desire means copying everything from the movie. I mean, costumes, the whole shebang. And Walken's Harry is really method acting as Marlon Brando, method acting as Stanley Kowalski. I actually dislike method acting. It can yield results, but if you make everyone around you miserable, I don't think it's worth it. And too many actors seem to use method acting as an excuse for their bad behavior. Or they're just so intense that they carry it too far and become a menace. But this is a movie, and in context, it was very funny. I also liked the supporting characters, like the veteran director and her hesitant successor. If you think about it too realistically, The story's resolution is absurd, maybe even a little troubling. So I quickly decided not to carry things to their most logical conclusion. Just take it as it is and leave it there. From a fictitious eccentric actor to a real one, movie number 5 is the 1999 documentary My Best Fiend. A couple months ago, I watched Fitzcarraldo and its making-of documentary Burden of Dreams. This is director Werner Herzog's film about actor Klaus Kinski. They worked on 5 films together, but they also had a long personal history dating back to Herzog's childhood when they lived in the same house for 3 tumultuous months. Theirs was a strange friendship where sometimes they got along great, and other times Kinski would be Kinski, enraged, freaking out, hurling abuse. But while Herzog is candid about Kinski's egomania and insanity, he also praises his moments of lucidity, his creative genius, his acting instincts, and his raw energy. There's film footage and behind-the-scenes clips, but Herzog also revisits locations, shares stories, and conducts interviews, including conversations with 2 of Kinski's leading ladies who recall his sweeter side. It's easy to focus on the crazy stories, Kinski's explosive tantrums, his delusions, the chief of the natives who appear in Fitzcarraldo who believed he was evil, offering to kill him for Herzog, Herzog himself plotting to firebomb his house. But Herzog chose to present a picture of a deeply flawed human, snarling and abusive at times, but also warm, enthusiastic, humorous. Needless to say, all of this makes for a fascinating documentary. Movie number 6 is 1955's Violent Saturday. The inhabitants of a mining town are busy dealing with their own personal problems, unaware 3 strangers, Stephen McNally, Lee Marvin, and J. Carrol Naish, have slipped into their midst to rob the bank. This is one of those, here are a bunch of different characters with issues whose stories will overlap at some point movies. And I thought it was pretty well crafted. It doesn't linger on any single thread for too long, and the way it keeps coming back to the thieves as they plot and rub elbows with unsuspecting townsfolk ensures that tension keeps mounting. When at last everything comes together, it explodes in a burst of violence that is startling, even though the title did warn you. Victor Mature plays a father who gets roped into the heist. Richard Egan, Tommy Noonan, Virginia Leith, Sylvia Sidney all have secret woes they're contending with, and Ernest Borgnine plays an Amish farmer. It's kind of a sleazy movie, though not as much as the description on Criterion implied. They like to make everything sound a little sexual over there. It's still the 50s. I liked this. The movie looks great. It's a bright, cheery crime drama. The music helps raise the stakes, and it's got a good build-up before delivering on its promise. Movie number 7 is 1951's Othello, Orson Welles' take on Shakespeare's racially charged tragedy about a successful general whose bitter, overlooked ensign Iago plots to bring him down by planting a seed of doubt about his bride's fidelity. Like most or all of Orson Welles' films, this did not have a smooth production. Shooting in Europe took 3 years, and then Welles had to redub the audio, and then he brought in another actress to redo all of Desdemona's lines, and I'm sure there's even more drama I'm not even aware of. There's a version that's allegedly lost that was shown at the Cannes Film Festival. There's a US version. Criterion has what is considered the optimal restored edition, and that's what I watched. It's Welles, so of course the visuals are striking. A lot of the imagery is stark, vaguely unsettling, and painting-like. But it took me a while to get into this. It's not a straightforward adaptation, and some artistic choices are a little over the top. Welles plays Othello with skin-darkening makeup, as was done for centuries. It is distracting, but at least it's not gross like Laurence Olivier's minstrel-style blackface in the 60s. I haven't seen that movie, but I have seen the pictures, and he looks awful. Wells's acting is very good, of course, but I actually don't think he gives the strongest performance here. That praise goes instead to Michal MacLeod for his Iago. That's not such a surprise to me, since I tend to find the vengeful, two-faced Iago the more fascinating, dynamic character. Iago might be my favorite thing about the play, honestly, and my least favorite thing is probably Othello himself. Specifically, it always bugs me that he lets himself be disillusioned about Desdemona's purity and devotion so quickly with so little evidence. For a man who is clearly intelligent, his jump from complete faith to suspicion to disgust seems illogical. That's kind of the message of the play, though, isn't it? He's the man who loved not wisely, but too well. Let the green-eyed monster, jealousy, mess around with his mind, and maybe there was insecurity there to begin with because of the then taboo nature of the relationship. On the subject of Desdemona, I liked Suzanne Cloutier. Her face, with its naturally sweet and compliant expression, makes the cruelty of Othello's churlish insults all the more devastating. Because the audio was bad, her lines needed to be re-recorded anyway, just like everyone else's, and that's when Wells brought in Gudrun Uri, I hope I'm saying these names right, who played opposite him on stage. I don't know how she compares, but I didn't find her delivery particularly interesting. Based on what I can remember, it has been a while since I read the play, Wells chose to make some of his most drastic changes in the scene that should be the most familiar, the murder. That's funny to me. I wonder if it's because he figured everyone thinks they know how it will go down, so he decided to mix it up ever so slightly. He would do something like that. I guess I liked the movie. As I said, it's striking, it looks amazing. I did have to get my bearings at first, and there's one chaotic scene I found confusing, but otherwise, in spite of the changes, I found it a decent adaptation. Movie number 8 is 1950's House by the River. While attempting a dalliance with his housemaid, Louis Hayward's middling novelist accidentally strangles her. He pressures his brother, Lee Bowman, into helping him dispose of the body, but afterward, their odd behavior starts raising eyebrows. I tend to think of Louis Hayward as a nice man. I'm not sure why, since I primarily associate him with Philip Lombard in And Then There Were None, who's not exactly a gentleman, but I've always had a soft spot for that performance. However, he's a real jerk in this movie. That's not a spoiler, by the way. 5 minutes in, I knew I despised him, and he only got worse from there. It's actually impressive how dastardly and selfish this character is. What makes him extra despicable, besides the way he mistreats his wife, played by Jane Wyatt, and his brother, is that he's also kind of inept. Instead of laying low, he embraces the situation as an opportunity to gain publicity for his next book. The fact he doesn't see this coming back to bite him makes him seem kind of stupid. But there are people in real life who do this type of thing. I do wonder if this movie is a bit too generous with some of its foreshadowing. There were a few times when I saw something and it made me think, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen. And then it did. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, though. If you get a hint of what's coming, that can increase the suspense as you wait to see if what you predicted will, in fact, come to pass. This gothic, turn-of-the-century psychological thriller directed by Fritz Lang has some really good visuals, strong atmosphere, and a couple scenes that are even a little spooky. And even though it made me hate his guts, Louis Hayward was very good. Number 9 is a TV movie, 1975's A Cry for Help. Robert Culp plays an early morning shock jock who takes a call from a disturbed girl. His flippant dismissal of her distress causes the lines to light up, and as a mea culpa, he starts tracking her down. In reality, nowadays, this guy would probably be sued for his insensitivity, if he was allowed to talk about suicide at all. In this era where we've got social media influencers using goofy euphemisms so as not to trigger anyone, and TV shows flashing the suicide hotline on screen if a character even refers to suicide, handling such a call this way would probably lead to national outrage, immediate cancellation, regardless of the outcome. Content-wise, it seems odd to call this a thriller, but it does feel like one. Is she gonna do it? And if she does, will someone be able to find her in time to save her life? The talk show host, who only has so much time before he goes off air, becomes the unlikely leader of a community effort, with listeners calling in their theories and tips. The narrative may seem disjointed at times, but gradually things come together. And then we wonder, is Culp's character just a jerk exploiting drama for ratings, or is there true caring beneath his abrasive radio personality? And movie number 10 is 1958's The St. Louis Bank Robbery, sometimes listed as The Great St. Louis Bank Robbery. In one of his earliest starring roles, Steve McQueen plays a youth who gets mixed up with a trio planning a bank heist. He refuses to do more than drive the car, but as the date gets closer, the situation spirals out of control. I accidentally watched 2 bank robbery movies this month. What are the chances? And this was the first of 3 bank heist films for Steve McQueen. He kind of did one per decade, I guess you could say. Of the 3, my pick would be the Thomas Crown Affair from 1968. This film is part cautionary tale for the youth, part psychological thriller, and it does do a good job crafting tension. Much of the instability comes from the fact that all the characters seem to have some kind of issue. My parents did not enjoy this one. I'm surprised my mom disliked it as much as she did. She has liked Steve McQueen since she was a kid, and he's mostly good here. Even this early in his career, he had screen presence and that coolness and edge that would characterize his iconic image. I get not liking the movie, though. It is dreary. It's kind of noisy. The music playing in one of the diners is just dreadful. And the story plods toward the inevitable. But I did find it an interesting watch. And that's it for this collection of reviews. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can find the titles listed in the description, and I invite you to share your thoughts on any of these films you may have seen in the comments below, and I'll be back again next Saturday. Thanks for watching.